Good evening. It's September 11th, 2023, and this is a special edition of Bulls Country. Tonight we're going to showcase guitars, not chicken, not ribs, not pinto beans or cornbread. Tonight we're going to talk about guitars and maybe a little bit of a self-biography because I have a real heartfelt and sentimental story that's related to this that's going to come into play here at the end. Because 30 years ago I sat down with my uncle from my dad's side, my Uncle Gary, and I was mesmerized about, not just music, and I knew I was in love with bluegrass and rock and roll and all that. But when I met Gary, he was just a phenomenal guitar picker, and my real dad was a real guitar picker, which was Gary's brother, Bobby. So Bobby passed away 15 years ago. And when Bobby died, nobody had a trace on whatsoever or where his guitar went. And I could never figure out why it was a Yamaha. So, he played a Yamaha and he really loved that guitar. And the irony about it is when I was 20 and I first started playing, my Uncle Gary would sit down with me with all the patience in the world and go over and over again with any song I wanted to learn. But the thing I was playing was that Yamaha. So to give you an idea, if you can look at this. This is me and my Uncle Gary Adams 30 years ago. And you can look at me, and I was looking at him and was really thinking, how do you play that thing like that? So that guitar right there in particular was Bobby's Yamaha that he kept in the house on 52 in Stockbridge. So I'll get back to that, and you'll understand why this story is important to me, and I believe this is going to be a good video. So there's another picture I'm going to show you. How do you work this big ass Kentucky job? Hold on. Do I gotta? Alright. So this is my Uncle Gary, and that's my cousin Tammy, and that's my cousin Angel on the left, and that's Tammy on the right. That photo, there's no year marker on it, but it was taken definitely, who knows? We can say 7, 8, 10 years back. I don't know. But the thing is, the difference between that photo and, let's go to the other one. And this photo is, this photo right here was definitely taken 30 years ago. That was probably within maybe 3 or 4 weeks that I sat down and I made up my mind I wanted to learn how to play the guitar. But Gary was the guy that was going to teach me, and he's the only guy that had the patience. So we're through all that, so you guys see that. We'll come back around to why this is important. But since that day, or before so then, through the 30 years, families grow apart, whatnot. Gary's my uncle, no doubt. I love them tremendously. I wouldn't trade them for any material item that I own this day. But the thing is when I met him and Bobby, which is my real dad, I knew then that I was a musician at heart. So I couldn't help myself because I really never tried to play a banjo or tried to play a fiddle or nothing like that. I was solely sold on guitars. So to put it in kind of like a better perspective to you or a common person, any person growing up in modern day America would definitely love Ted Nugent, Chuck Berry. You could name a handful of other famous guitar pickers. Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. But the thing to me is I was young and I was influenced by Gary. So my Uncle Gary was, and Jimi Hendrix also. But to me, in my mind, I was 20 years old. So in my mind, my Uncle Gary was Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Ted Nugent, and Chuck Berry, all rolled up into one guy. And I used to sit and study him, and I watched every move he made. And I took every minute I had with him, and I really knew, I was like, this is something I'll never get back in life. And I grasped it and I held it. And no matter how hard I studied him or whatever, I never could maximize my potential and be as good as a guitar player as he is. I'm not going to say was, because he still is. And so that kind of gives you an idea. And I'm going to come back around to the story and you'll see why I mention all this. But in the meantime, while I lost contact with my Uncle Gary, and because we were like glue, we were together all the time, no doubt. Just like he and Bobby was, his brother, my real dad. So I grew a guitar infatuation, but the thing is I had it since I was young, and I knew it, and even my mom knows that. And but I couldn't figure out how to, work the damn thing or play it, and I had the passion. It was there all the time, and I knew it, and I had the passion for music, but until I sat down with my Uncle Gary when I was 20 years old, it took me, a good full year sitting down with him before I could really follow through, and who knows. But what I'm saying is, from the point that when I first sat down with him, so for an example, I seen him yesterday because I went to a family reunion in Stockbridge. And the first thing he did is he played me a Lum Patton song. And I took 2 guitars with me, because I took 2 for the sole reason, because I knew he was going to be there, but I didn't know if he had a guitar with him. So I only brought 1 up when I walked up into the pavilion, and the one I chose to take with me yesterday, September 10th, 2023, I took this mid-1970s Epiphone, which, it ain't all that, but the price tag was $230 at the Music Go Round in Ann Arbor. So I'm not gonna lie, I traded it in, a 1988 Sigma, and I gave them $150 cash, and I got a guitar stand and a brand new guitar tuner. This might not be the brand new one, but, and I walked out the door with this vintage Epiphone, which she's a beast. And me and Gary yesterday played for the first time together in, like, I don't know how many years. And with this guitar, I really knew it because I went up and played it 2 months before I went back and bought it. So. That gives you a little taste of that one. I'm not going to run through and play every one of them because I'm going to come back to the what I'm telling you about coming back around. And oops, wow. So this is another Epiphone, and I've owned this thing for like 13 years. So. It's out of tune there. If you can't hear it, I can hear it. And then I got my hands on this beautiful 2010 Washburn acoustic electric. So we'll follow that Epiphone. I'll play a little bit of that Sweet Home Alabama on this baby. So like I said, to give you an idea, I'm a person who really loves guitars, so I can't help it. So then you get to the Guild, and if you know American history, Guild is out of Rhode Island, New Jersey. Richie Havens played it at Woodstock, so we'll give her a sound stroke to that one. Might have fell a little out too. We'll play a little bit of Johnny Cash on this baby because she's got some bass. That's your Guild. That's part of American history, just like Gibson is. And so, put the Guild up. But here, this is the one that blows my mind, and I can't play it tonight, but this is a true Gibson. This guitar came brand new in this same case, and when I found this guitar, I couldn't believe it. And, I ran the numbers and everything. This is a 1970s Gibson, 1970 Gibson Southern Jumbo. If you get a picture of that label in there, it says Kalamazoo. But anyhow, I bought it. When I bought it, it played. I fell so in love with it. I played this guitar for 90 days. I didn't play any other guitar. I was just so in love with it. So the bridge cracked. So as soon as the bridge cracked, I backed off all the pressure on the strings. And this has to go to a professional luthier because it's such a vintage guitar. And you can do your own footwork and find out how much they're worth. It's a 1970 Southern Jumbo Gibson made in Kalamazoo, Michigan. If you want to look at the tuners. So I was like, wow. I was like, man, I got the Holy Grail. And I did. And I knew. I was like, that's my baby. If you, that's when I changed the guitar strings. They bust off in here and fall down in there. And that's what you hear. So anyway, get this over here so they can see the case. So it'll go back in its original case. Southern Jumbo Gibson. And I gotta get her fixed. But this is where we're gonna come back. So, when I went to my family reunion yesterday on my dad's side, I took my Epiphone. Gary was there with his Martin. Then my cousin Mo, after we were there for about 2 hours, my cousin Mo took off and he came back with this. And you can see it's a Yamaha, right? So as soon as I seen it, I was like, wait a minute. The first thing I'm thinking is definitely, I'm like, wait a minute. My real dad died 15 years ago, and his beloved Yamaha is nowhere to be found. So my cousin Bo glued the bridge, he sanded the back, and he painted it matte black. So he comes back to the reunion with this. And it definitely wasn't in tune. And he said, Gary, tune this guitar to, our Uncle Gary. So I grabbed it and I tuned it and I played it. And I looked at him and I said, man, this is a Yamaha. I said, you might have the Yamaha I learned on 30 years ago. I said, you have Bobby's guitar. And he didn't know. He's like, well, this is one Gary brought to the house, and or Gary had to move over here, and the bridge was lifted, and I fixed it and did everything. And I looked at him and I said, man, listen. I said, I'm gonna give you another guitar, but I have to have that guitar. So Mo wasn't feeling it. Then that got resolved real quick because Colleen came around, our Aunt Colleen, and she looked at me and she's like, Sean, that's your guitar. You're taking it home with you today. And I felt so much better. I was like, wow, I got my dad's guitar, But after I did the research and I came home with it, first thing I did yesterday, I got home with it, first thing I did with it is I took the old strings off of it and I put brand new Martins on it and I tuned it up and I played it a little more. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow. I'm like, am I really holding my dad's guitar that I took my first lessons on 30 years ago? And I was so happy. I was just like stoked. But after further pictures and further review and all, how do you get back into this thing? So, after I did the research and I went into photos from 30 years ago, that's my Uncle Gary playing my dad's Yamaha. Then I kind of knew I was looking at differences in the guitar, but then I come across this old photo of Gary and Tammy and Angel, and I was like, nope, I don't have it. So I was like, well, it's not my dad's guitar. I said, but you know what? It's my Uncle Gary's guitar. And I was still stoked. I was happy. I was like, because, you know what I mean? He was my guy right there. He still is my guy. So, she's still iconic. She's still a family heirloom, and it ain't going nowhere. And to compare this with all the rest of these ones, and that 70 Gibson, I'm sorry, it runs from, that model number runs from